Hello, today we are going to be solving quadratic equations by factoring. Now factoring you have done before, you did it in the last unit, so that's going to be the same process. We're just going to add one or two steps at the end in order to actually solve the quadratic equations. Okay, so in this last standard you were graphing equations, and so you found the vertex and you created a table that looks similar to this. Once you created your table, you then graphed your equation, and you got a U or an upside down U, and then you told me what the solutions were based on where the graph crossed the x-axis. Okay? Now, when we solve by factoring, we're still going to get the same answer, -4, -2. We just don't have to graph it. We can go about it a different way. Sometimes we don't have a graph to graph, and then sometimes our zeros are decimals. And when we graph them, we can't see the exact decimal. So solving it a different way is going to help us see that exact decimal. So what we can do is solve by factoring. Okay? So we're going to factor this equation, which you factored in your last unit. So hopefully you remember how to do that. All right? If not, remember our steps are to find the GCF, make the factor chart, split the b value, draw the line and factor out the GCF, and then write the factored form. So when we're factoring, we want to find those zeros. So we want to find when y equals 0, what does x equal? Okay, so we're going to replace our y with 0. Anytime you're factoring, you want your equation set equal to 0, because we need to find those zeros. So if our equation's not set equal to 0, we're not going to get the correct answer. Okay, so we're just going to go through our factoring process, ignoring that 0 equals. So we'll make our table. Multiply to get a times c, so 1 times 8 is 8, and then add to get b, which is 6. Alright, so our factors of 8, 1 times 8 is 8, 1 plus 8 is 9, so that's not correct. 2 times 4 is 8, and 2 plus 4 is 6, which is exactly what we need, so those will be our two b values. So we'll split our b value. We have x squared plus 2x plus 4x plus 8. Draw our line down the middle and factor out the GCF on both sides. So x squared plus 2x, our GCF is 1x. X squared divided by x is x, and 2x divided by x is 2. So we have x plus 2. Bring our x plus 2 over to the other side. And then 8 divided by 2 is 4, so we have plus 4. We'll write our two binomials. We have x plus 2 and x plus 4. Now we're going to bring that equals 0 back in. Since we want to find what our x values are when y is 0, we're going to set each of our binomials equal to 0, and we're going to solve for x. So you're solving for x just like we did back in Unit 1 and we've been doing all year. So in order to get x by itself on the first one, we're going to subtract 2 from both sides, because the opposite of adding is subtracting, and 0 minus 2 is -2. Then we're going to subtract 4 from both sides, and 0 minus 4 is -4. So you notice our zeros are -2, 0, and -4, 0. Well, if you look up at the graph, that's exactly where this graph crosses the x-axis. So solving by factoring, we're going to get the same exact answers. We just don't have to graph it. We solve it algebraically. Alright, so let's look at another example. We have x squared minus 12x plus 29 equals -3. So our first step is to set it equal to 0. In order to do that, we need this -3 to be 0, so we're going to add 3 to both sides. And we add it to the 29 because that's a like term. So that leaves us with x squared minus 12x plus 32 equals 0. Alright. Then we're going to make our table. So we're going to multiply to get 32 and add to get -12. Well, our factors of 32 are 1 times 32, but that equals 33. 2 times 16, but that equals 18. 4 times 8, that equals 12. We need a -12, so we're just going to flip our signs and make it a -4 and a -8 to be -12. All right, next we're going to split our b value. So we'll have x squared minus 4x minus 8x plus 32. We'll draw our line down the middle, and then we're going to factor out the GCF on both sides. So we have x squared minus 4x. Our GCF is going to be x. And then x squared divided by x is x, and negative 4x divided by x is negative 4. Bring that negative x minus 4 to the other side. And then 32 divided by negative 4 will give us negative 8. So our two binomials are going to be x minus 4 and x minus 8. Then we're going to do our new step. We're going to set it equal to 0. So we set both binomials equal to 0. And in order to get x by itself, we're going to add 4 to both sides. And 0 plus 4 is 4. Then we're going to add 8 to both sides. And 0 plus 8 is 8. So our zeros for this quadratic equation are 4, 0, and 8, 0. Be sure you write your zeros as ordered pairs because those are the answers. So just like you did when you were graphing, we're writing our zeros as ordered pairs. All right, let's look at this one. 2x squared minus x minus 10 equals 0. Okay, so our equation is set equal to 0, so we don't have to do that step this time. We'll just go straight to making the table. All right, so our a times c is negative 20, and our b value is negative 1. So one of our numbers has to be negative because we have a negative 20. So negative 1 times 20, if we add those together, will give us 19, so that's not what we need. Negative 2 times 10 is negative 20, but negative 2 plus 10 is 8. Negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. Negative 4 plus 5 is a positive 1, so we need a negative 1, so we're just going to switch our we will just switch our signs, so we'll make our 4 positive and our 5 negative, and that'll give us a negative 1. Alright, so now we're going to split our b value, so we'll have 2x squared plus 4x minus 5x minus 10. Draw our line down the middle, and factor out the GCF on both sides. So our GCF between 2x squared and 4x will be 2x. 2x squared divided by 2x is x, and 4x squared divided by 2x is 2. Move our x plus 2 to the other side. Negative 10 divided by 2 gives me negative 5. Alright, so my two binomials, we have x plus 2 and 2x minus 5. So now we're going to set each binomial equal to 0. So x plus 2 equals 0. We're going to subtract 2 from both sides. So x equals negative 2. Now this second one, we have to add 5 to both sides. And that's going to give us 2x equals 5. But remember, we need x by itself. So we need to divide by 2 on both sides. And once we divide by 2, you're just going to type this in your calculator. 5 divided by 2, it should give you 2.5. So we want to write our answers as decimals. Alright, you don't have to worry about the fraction. We want to write our answers as decimals because these are points on the graph. And decimals are easier to visualize. So our zeros are negative 2, 0, and 2.50. Alright, let's look at another example. We have 12x squared minus 64x plus 71 equals 7. So the first thing we want to do is set it equal to 0. So we're going to subtract 7 from both sides. We'll subtract it from the 71 because that's the like term. So that gives us 12x squared minus 64x plus 64 equals 0. Now on this one, you should notice that we have a GCF. Remember that first step of factoring? We do want to factor out a GCF if we ever have one. Okay, so let's factor out a GCF on this one. Alright, in this case our GCF is 4, so we're going to divide all of our terms by 4. So 12 divided by 4 gives us 3, and then negative 64 divided by 4 gives us negative 16, and 64 divided by 4 gives us positive 16. Alright, once we factor out the GCF, you can ignore that GCF. You'll never need it again for this type of problem. Alright, so you can just ignore it. It's going to make your numbers smaller. Okay, so you do want to factor it out, but now we don't need it anymore. So we're going to make our table. A times C, so 3 times 16 gives us 48. And then our B value is negative 16. So our factors of 48, 1 times 48, if we add those together, give us 49. So that's not what we want. 2 times 24, if we add those together, 2 plus 24 gives us 26. That's not what we want. 3 times 16, if we add those together, 3 times 16 is 19. We're getting closer. 4 times 12. 4 times 12 is 16, but notice we need a negative 16. So we're just going to flip both of our signs to make them negatives. Negative 4 plus negative 12 will give us negative 16. So we're going to split our B value. Remember, use your new values, not the 12 and the 64, but we're going to use the 3 and the 16. All right, draw our line down the middle. GCF on the left side, 3x squared and 4x. Our GCF is just 1x. 3x squared divided by x is 3x. And negative 4x divided by x is negative 4. We'll bring over our 3x minus 4. And then 16 divided by negative 4 gives us negative 4. So our two binomials are 3x minus 4 and x minus 4. So we'll set these equal to 0. So 3x minus 4 equals 0. To solve for x, we're going to add 4 to both sides. 0 plus 4 is 4. So we have 3x equals 4. In order to get x by itself, we're going to divide by 3 on both sides. And 4 divided by 3 gives us 1.33. Typically, decimals are rounded to the nearest hundredth. So it's 2 numbers past the decimal. All right, so be sure you're rounding to the nearest hundredth. 2 numbers past the decimal. All right, and then x minus 4 equals 0. We're going to add 4 to both sides. And 0 plus 4 gives us 4. All right, so the zeros for this quadratic equation are 1.33, 0 and 4, 0. All right, so make sure that your equation is set equal to 0. Factor it just like we did in Unit 4. Set each binomial that you end with equal to 0. And solve for the variable just like you know how to solve for x. Make sure you're also writing your answers as ordered pairs, whatever your x value is, 0.